Everyone, good afternoon, good evening. Good afternoon, good evening. First of all, I want to say welcome to this meeting. If you have any initial questions, I'm happy to take them while we're waiting for people to come in. The goal of today's meeting is really to sort of introduce you to the class and to help you to get more comfortable with basically the working, so to speak, Google Classroom, the schedule to help you understand what the expectations are, and and to just do a very quick introduction to the material. We're not going to do an extensive review of the material today. All right, so I will share my screen. And we'll just give people 1 more minute and then we'll get started. Sharon, yes, the question.
Okay, good evening. You said we could ask questions. That's why I raised my hand. So, can we use any version of the SPSS, or it has to be the latest one? I think that's 29.
You can use any version.
Okay, like, is there like a version that, what's the least version we can go with?
I don't know. There's so many versions. Some of them are very old. You won't find them on the market. So whatever version you can find will be fine. The reality is that a lot of the statistical softwares, the changes that they are making to the software have nothing to do with the basic statistics. It's in the more advanced methods that differences might exist, and those differences really relate to whether the software can do something or it cannot. Whether you can use it for one new technique or you cannot. So it's not often that whatever you have is going to be fine. It's basically my point.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Any other initial quick questions? I got a question on email asking if someone asked if they can use their phone. Unfortunately, you cannot use your phone. I don't believe that at this point phones have the capacity for SPSS, for R. You can follow the class with your phone, but you will not be able to practice the analysis. You will not be able to, yeah, that's the main thing. You'll not be able to practice the analysis. You'll be able to follow along the slides, be able to understand the concepts that we're reviewing. But if there are things that you need to do, you may not be able to do the homework. So I really implore you to try to use a computer if you can. And so, yeah, so to try to use a computer if you can, and that's probably the best idea. Any other initial questions before we jump in? Yes, Rajiv. Rajiv, you have a question?
The benefits of the class, what will be uh, what we get by the end of the class, what are we going to benefit apart from getting the knowledge?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and that's a question that I'm sure is on the minds of a lot of people. Here's the thing, right? Our philosophy generally is that this class is going to help you to get skills that you can then use in your own private lives, in your academics, in your research, in your work. That's the most important takeaway for us, right? We might be able to provide certificates at the end, but the certificate is not important to us. Okay. The certificate is something that if it happens, fine. If it doesn't, that's okay. One thing to remember is that all of this, it's volunteer run, right? So we're doing this out of in our own time, out of our own resources, and so the expectation from us is that if you're giving up all of this, we expect you to also be available to learn, right? And really, the learning is the most important to us. Okay. So that's the thing. In one previous class that what we taught was the meta-analysis class. One of the deliverables for that class was that folks have to complete a paper. This is a basic statistics class, and it might be possible to complete it from what you learn, but we have not incorporated that into the design of this class because it's not going to be enough time. Someone said my voice is not audible well. Is that the case with everybody else? And someone else raise your hand and speak.
No, you're audible. You're audible.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. If you can't hear me properly, maybe it's your earphones or something. Maybe that. Yeah. All right. So let's jump in right away. So introduction to medical statistics. So we're one of the things that I'm going to do today is basically, like I mentioned for those who joined earlier, is that I'm going to just introduce you to the class, tell you the expectations, remind you of how it works. You might have read it in the emails that we've sent, but here, the hope is that by the end of this class, you will have a full understanding of expectations. You have a full understanding of how it's going to work. Somebody asked if the course is free. Yes, nobody's being asked to pay for it. So this is all completely run by volunteers, and some of the names of those who have volunteered to run the courses in this course schedule, if you have been able to go through it. Okay, all right. So the course is intended to help health workers engage better with statistics, right? And we're not going to teach you this is not a course where there's going to be a lot of math or a lot of statistical theory. Our focus is really on helping you that if you come across statistical methods, but not all statistical methods, obviously, but if you come across some of the most important statistical methods when you read a paper, that you can understand it, that if you need to conduct research yourself, that you will be able to figure out, you'll be able to figure out your way to some degree. That's really the goal of this course. So it's not a course where we're going to help you become full-fledged statisticians. There's not going to be enough time for that, right? But it will give you enough of the basics such that if you want to ask questions, if you want to learn some more, you will have a place to begin your journey. Okay, so that's really our goal. And again, this is a course where you're going to do a lot of the work yourselves, right? It's going to be, nobody's going to chase you around. And we're not going to really do a lot of teaching during these sessions. Every week we will have 1 hour, actually 2 hours, 1 hour for SPSS, where the bulk of what we will do is we'll do a quick review of the material that you're supposed to have learned yourself during the week. And then we will walk through the software very quickly as well. And then we'll take questions. So what we're really hoping that you will do during this weekend sessions is ask questions, right? If you're stuck with something that you're working on, that you worked on during the week, as part of the course, you bring it to this 1 hour session during the weekend and ask questions. There's just not going to be enough time. And and since we've already recorded all this material from previous courses, it's just easier for everybody. And it's also easier in the sense that it doesn't have to be at a set time, when you can do it at the time that works for you, right? So that flexibility is important because a lot of people who are in this course are adults with full careers who are doing all sorts of things on their own time. So it will be useful for you to have that flexibility, I believe. And so because of that, what we're going to do during this weekends is to just help you get up to speed and help you move forward further. Okay. All right. So basically, we'll have recorded lectures. We'll send out homeworks, and we'll probably send out the first one today. Sometimes we'll have polls in Google Classroom. And if you have questions at any point in time, please raise your hand. If you don't have any questions, I ask that you please mute yourselves, right? Because you're using Google Meet, it doesn't have as much functionality for like the way a Zoom webinar would have functionality, right? So we cannot like go and allow each person to speak or anything like that. We ask that if you mute yourselves while you're not speaking, it will be in everybody's best interest. Everyone will be able to hear. And if you have questions that you want to ask, raise your hand, you'll be called upon to speak, and then you can speak. Okay. All right. Any questions at this point? If you don't have any questions, this is a very large and diverse group of participants. This is not from this group, but this group is fairly similar to what we have on this page. We have people from all over the world. That means different cultures, different perspectives. That's good, but that also means that we all have to be respectful of the next person that we're working with. And we all have to be respectful of the next person that we're working with. And we'll have to be respectful of the next person and bear that in mind as well. Okay. So in terms of the weekly schedule, so this week we expect that by now you would have gone through, and so maybe the question I should ask is there anybody who is not on Google Classroom yet and who is having trouble getting access to it? Maybe we can talk about that quickly. Good luck.
Oh. Yes, so I did not get I did not see the link, or yeah, so I don't know how I should join the Google Classroom.
Okay.
Do you have code, maybe?
Do you have the email welcoming you to the class?
Yes, I have it.
Yeah, so there's a link in that email that you just have to click, and then it will give you access to Google Classroom. But there's also a code. Yeah, there's also a code. So this code, NNKELRO, if that's better, that's easier. Yeah. So if that's easier for you to use, then please use that. I also want to say that when you're on a group call like this and you're following it with your phone, right? If you get a phone call come through, that phone call will unmute you from the group meeting, and everybody can hear what you have to say. So if you don't want us to hear what you're saying, please maybe don't take calls during the classes, or disconnect yourself fully from the meeting before you take your call, or it's up to you. But also it's going to be a distraction for everybody else, so please. So everybody's on Google Classroom, that's good. Or anybody who is not yet, will figure it out. So this basically, so there are three kind of components to the weekly schedule. There's a general class like today, where we're bringing you up to speed with how the class is going to work. But every week for 1 hour, we will have a lab, SPSS and then R, right? So you can join anyone that you want. You can join both. Basically, they're going to go through the same materials broadly, not completely in this, because sometimes SPSS might not be able to do something, SPSS might be able to do more, R might be able to, might be different. So we will have these sessions, SPSS and R, and you can bring questions to that class. You can bring if you have material that you've looked at during the week that you're having trouble with, bring it. We ask that you please have looked at the material during the week before the weekend session. That's how everybody is going to benefit from the session, right? Because again, it's 1 hour, it's short, there's not going to be enough time. If by now you have not installed R and you have not played with the R material, I ask that you please do that, okay? Because we're not going to be helping you troubleshoot with setting up R in the class. If you have issues with R, right? If we have issues with R or with SPSS, you should go to an office hour, or we have, if you check in the email that we sent you, we talked about an hour, a period when you can ask instructors questions outside of class, right? That is where we expect you to please, that's where we expect you to please address those kinds of questions. We don't have enough time to spend in the class to troubleshoot R and SPSS for everybody. Okay, so it's going to be everybody's best interest to do that. We have office hours almost every day of the week, right? It's optional. If you have questions you want to ask, then you click the link, you set up an appointment. That way it's more efficient for everybody. Okay, all right. Somebody asked about more advanced classes. So for more advanced classes, we haven't started doing those. Right now, what we're doing is the STATS101. I know that some of you might be more advanced than this class, and that's perfectly fine. You don't have to keep going, and let us know if you think that we already know all of this material, and feel free to drop out of the class. If you think this class is going to be useful for you, then that's great. It might be a review. The thing is for this material that we have, some people might benefit from introduction to R. Some people might benefit from the SPSS component, and that's going to be a useful part of it. Like I said earlier, if you have questions if you have any issues with SPSS or R, please come to office hours and we can help you answer those questions. So we'll have office hours almost every day during the week. And that's the best place to address questions like that, not in the general class. Okay. All right. Then we'll have homeworks, and one of those homeworks we'll release today with a deadline in about 2 weeks. Each homework will spread over like 2 units of the course. And the idea is that you will have reviewed the material, and the homework is going to help you it's going to force you to think about what you've learned and remind you. Again, you're not doing this for school or anything, but you're doing this to learn for yourselves, and the homework is part of that learning. Somebody asked if the programs will be provided. No, the programs will not be provided. If you go back to the email, and maybe I should show that email and walk through it, because it looks like quite a few people have questions that are related to the email. And this is the email that was sent out to everybody, right? So we've talked about Google Classroom, and we've talked about lectures being recorded. You'll find the lectures on Google Classroom, and we'll have live sessions for SPSS and R. If you want to access the software, there's a link here. R is free, SPSS is not. Okay, R is free, SPSS is not free. So, but R requires code, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But SPSS does not. SPSS just uses point and click. It's just exactly like you would Microsoft Word or something like that. And as long as you know what you want to do, SPSS will be able to. As long as you know what you want to do, SPSS will be able to help you with that. And if you want to join an office hour here, you will be able to schedule a chat here. So if you click this link rather, it will bring you to a schedule that looks like this. So you see, on each day of the week, we have some time that we have set aside. We can take at least 2 appointments each day, right? If you feel like you need another appointment, you can send us an email. But this should be enough, right? And please be mindful of everybody. We have a fairly large class, and so if you have questions, let's use that time to ask it. Okay. Somebody asked when the live sessions will be. The live sessions will be on Saturdays, right? It's just more convenient for all the instructors to have the live sessions be on Saturdays. So everything that we're doing with this class is just going to be Saturday evening between 4 and 8 p.m. West Africa time. The SPSS will be at 4 p.m. The hour will be at 7 p.m. And that's really how very simple schedule. And everything else you're going to do on your own time. Only if you want to meet with the instructors, you click one of these links, and it's in the email that we send to you. Okay, all right. Any questions now that I've not yet addressed? Somebody wants the subsequent videos to be addressed, to be arranged serially. Maybe let me see if I can understand what this person is talking about. So we'll look at Google Classroom. And so the way that Google Classroom is going to work is that every Sunday we will release the material for that the material that you should look at that week. And you can see that we've already loaded it, but we're not going to release it yet. That way you can basically take it in piecemeal. So if you go into your Google Classroom now, you will see measures of central tendency. And first of all, for measures of central tendency, there is the video for the class, then there is a video for our there's a video for the class, there's a video for measures for our lab, and there's video for SPSS. So yeah, so there's videos for SPSS. And yeah, unfortunately, some of these videos are not arranged serially, and you might need to do a little bit of looking at it yourself. The issue though is that as you go further, we have only one video. What we had done initially was that for measures of central tendency, we cut it into pieces. But for the other videos, we have only one video, so you won't have that challenge with the video subsequently. Thank you very much for raising that point. Okay. So Google Meet does not have a software. It doesn't have an app. It's a web app, right? So don't worry about trying to download Google Meet. Somebody asks, can we complete all? Yes, complete all the videos that you see on your Google Classroom. That's the point, unless you want to only focus on SPSS and you want to only focus on R, and that's completely up to you. But you can focus on both as well, and completely up to you. It's basically the same material in SPSS and the same material in R. All right. Can everybody see my shared screen? Yes, no, there are reaction buttons at the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm seeing your screen.
Okay, excellent. All right.
The homework schedule.
Yes, homework schedule. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, so we will release the homework today, one set, the first set, and then we will have the deadlines in 2 weeks, and then we'll also release the rest of the homework. We might be able to, at some point, schedule a time where we can review homework together. We haven't finalized that yet, but that's something that we might consider. Okay. These are the instructors who have volunteered their time to work with us. This is not a full list. There are a few people whose names are not here now that I look at it. But some of the videos, that you will come across are with these people. Were made by these people. Okay. Somebody said that if you can't afford the SPSS, you could use R. That's an option, and that's why R is free, and that's really why we are excited to teach in R. The other option is to download a trial version of SPSS, right? But the issue is, what do you do after the class is done? Now you've learned how to use SPSS. What are you going to do about that? You won't be able, if you don't have SPSS, then it's going to be hard to work. So My advice is if this is your first time, SPSS might be easier and you can download the trial version and use that, but you might also want to consider R. Okay. When we took this class the last time, when people started, the bulk of the class was around midline. That means that even if you guessed all the questions, there's a chance that you will, even if you guess all the questions, there's a chance that you will get 50%, but most people will be then able to improve. The trial is 30 days, yes. So the question one person asked, which one is the best? There's no best software. There is the software that works for you, right? So SPSS is point and click. It uses, and I don't have SPSS on my computer, I would have shown you. It uses SPSS is point and click, and it's just like if you are comfortable using Microsoft Word and Excel, you will be able to use SPSS. It doesn't require any coding. It does require you to know which statistical tests you want to conduct, and that's it. R is fully code-based, okay? R is increasingly popular among researchers, and that's partly because it's free. So that means that anybody can go now and download R and watch videos online, and and then you can get started, right? And there's a lot of material on the internet about how to use R. So if you're really interested in R, you'll be able to get materials to help you get started on R. Okay. So yeah, R is free. So that's one of the most important advantages for me. For this class, we'll give you all the code that you need for R. So that will make it easy for you to start using R, to get familiar with it. And that's it. Someone asked if you can watch the videos, and yeah, you can watch the videos. I'm not sure that I understand the question. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask that question, that would be helpful. The other advantage of R, okay? Yes, you need to have
I want
both
to ask
R.
a question.
Yes, please. Precious, ask the
Okay,
question.
I wanted to
Yeah.
ask, do you need to have any knowledge of programming before you use R, or once you watch the videos you have uploaded for us, we are good to go? That's what I wanted to ask. Thank you.
I see. So you don't need to have any knowledge of programming. R is not very programming heavy, actually, especially in the basic things that you need to do. As you become more familiar with R, you start programming some more. And the programming in R is not the typical computer programming. It's simpler, more straightforward. At least that's my experience. Okay. Someone asked, do you need R and R Studio? Yes, you need both. Actually, no, you don't need R and R Studio. You need R. But R Studio makes it easy to use R, right? And let me show you what I mean. R Studio makes it easy to use R. So if you have R on your computer, R is really the software that you're running on. R Studio is like an interface that makes R more fun. And maybe I can show it very quickly for people who might be wondering whether to use R or to use R Studio. So this is R Studio. And see, I have to look for my R because I don't typically use R. I use R Studio. And if I can't find the next 30 seconds, then we'll just keep going. Okay. So this is R, okay? This is what R looks like. And if you have code, you will have to type into this thing that looks like a notepad. And And that's not really fun because then it looks a lot more like programming. But this is what our studio looks like, and you can see this is where I have all my code actually. And with our studio, you can have code chunks where you can separate out your code. You can have an outline, so you can jump from part of the code to part of the code. And if you have a really long code, like for instance, like this paper that maybe so like for instance now, this paper has 3,000 lines of code, right? If you wanted to keep going line by line, it will take a long time. But with R, you can have an outline, and it can allow you to jump from part of the code to part of the code. So those are some of the reasons why I think R it's important to have R Studio and R at the same time. Yeah, so this is our Markdown, correct? And our Studio has other components as well. Okay, all right. So the course data sets, we have created a number of data sets in the course, and if you look at the in Google Classroom, the course data sets are on Google Classroom. We've already posted them. These are the data sets for the course, right? There's the iron trial. There's this one that is systolic blood pressure. There's menopause. So all these data sets are data sets that you would use in the course of the course. And these data sets, they are sample data sets. One of them is a real data set from a study, but the others are data sets that are like we just put them together. They are not real. They're simulated, basically, to be able to use to teach. Okay. All right. Any questions? Have I answered all the questions that you have? Somebody asked when the live sessions are. And so the live sessions are on Saturdays, 4 p.m. West Africa time for SPSS and 7 p.m. West Africa time for R. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So basically, yes, you'll be taught how to use SPSS and R, correct? So by taught, there's already videos on Google Classroom. There's already videos on Google Classroom that we expect you to watch. And in those videos, they walk through SPSS. And if you have questions, you can reach out to us and we can set some time to help you. Reach out to us through you can find time on office hours and we can look through for you or with you. And on weekends like this, we'll also demonstrate some of the parts of it and take questions. Good luck. I think you raise your hand first.
Yes, so I'm asking if, so basically we're supposed to have both of them, the SPSS and the ARA in our.
You don't have to, no. You don't have to. You can choose one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you can choose one. All right. So I think Biswek, you have a question, please? All right. So if you have a question,
just a clarification from you.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Hello.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes. All right. From your presentations, yes, from your presentations, it has been cleared that for the live sessions we shall have them on Saturdays. But I wanted to seek clarification on the videos that are going to be posted in classroom.
Yeah.
We able to access the classroom anytime that we want. Maybe I missed that one out in your presentations because yeah, the network has been on and off.
Yeah. Yeah. You can access the classroom anytime you want. You can access it as many
Hello?
times as you want. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, I think something's wrong with his network. So the Google Classroom is always there. It's you can access the material anytime, and we will post the material for each week ahead of time. So
Hello?
now, can you hear me? Hello, we can hear you. Okay.
Yes, I can. Sorry, I
Yeah,
lost connection.
no problem. So what I was saying is that the Google Classroom is always there. You will be able to access the material anytime you want. Okay. And the other thing I should say is that these sessions we will record, and we will also be able to post the recordings in Google Classroom as well. So if for any reason you have to miss a session, then you'll be able to catch up on your own time. Precious, you have a question?
That the classroom window again.
You said? Okay, Precious, you have a question. This way, can you type your question? It looks like your network isn't great, so please type your question so that we can answer if you still have questions. Precious, please. Precious, your hand is up. You have a question? All right. So that's the how the course is going to work, and what we can spend a little bit of time doing is that I can introduce some of the material. Will the links to the live sessions be posted in Google Classroom? Yes, they will be posted in Google Classroom. Someone asked about a link to download our studio. All right, so if you go back to this email and you click the link, what it brings you to is not a link to the software. It brings you to this page that gives you an instruction on how you install R for Windows, R for Mac, and as part of that, there's install R, there's install R Studio. Okay, so all the information that you need to be able to install R and R Studio are on this link. Okay, yeah. All right. Someone asks about the textbook. Unfortunately, we don't have a textbook that we recommend. Yeah, so that's really so there are textbooks that are available. We can send you, we can make available names of textbooks, but we will not be following any textbook per se, you know. So I don't know if that's going to be useful to you. It might be. But the other thing that I wanted to say is that all the videos that we're going to teach from are already posted on our YouTube. Okay. So if you decide that you want to go along very quickly, you should be able to access YouTube and find the videos there. And the link to our YouTube is in that email that I sent. That email is such a huge resource. So here, so if you click this link, it will bring you to our YouTube, okay? And there are playlists, and those playlists are organized by course. And this is meta-analysis that we taught before. This is epidemiology. It's a good introduction to epidemiology course. This is the SPSS labs that are now posted, that are going to be posted in your Google Classroom. These are the R labs that are going to be posted in your Google Classroom. And these are the videos to the classes. So if you want to go along very quickly, this is always an alternative for you. And then you can bring questions and you can bring questions to this session as well. So if you click this link, it's arranged by video. It's arranged by video, you know, and it goes all the way to each unit. Okay. So that's YouTube. Someone wants to know if the certificates. I talked about this earlier. Yes, we will provide certificates. We have requirements for who and who will provide certificates for, but we're not really. That's not the most important thing to us. The important thing to us is not the certificates. It is the opportunity to learn together. Okay. So don't think about this as, oh, I need someplace, some way to tick off boxes. And what we really want you to do here is learn from the material and use the material in your personal lives. Okay. The link to the YouTube videos is in the email. Yes, at the bottom here. So at the bottom of this is email, is our LinkedIn as well. So all right. So that's the schedule. So I could do in a few minutes, just introduce some of the material that we're going to teach. And so we'll introduce some of the material that we're going to teach, and maybe in the next 20 minutes or so, and we can take it from there. Sounds good? Okay. All right. So measures of central tendency, and this is basic statistics, and we will go through this again next week. So I'm just going to fly through very quickly. I'm basically going to use this opportunity to tell you what to expect from the course. Okay. So we'll go through measures of central tendency. Measures of central tendency really are ways that we summarize and describe data, right? And the most important one that comes to mind is the average, right? And the average is the same thing as the mean, okay? So someone might ask, on average, how tall are the participants of the STATS101 class, right? On average, what's the age of the participants of the STATS101 class? We use averages to summarize information in a way that is easy for people to understand, and we all use averages in our private lives. We use averages for continuous variables, right? But there's different types of variables, not just continuous. If you are looking at the blood pressure, that will be a continuous variable because it has an infinite range of values between consecutive units. So you can go from 1.1, 1.11, like that. And that's distinct from variables that we call discrete variables, right? A discrete variable cannot be broken up into parts. You cannot have 1.1. It's either 1 or 2. So discrete variables are usually also call them counts, right? So if you say the number of patients that I saw today, assuming you're a clinician seeing patients in a hospital in Kigali, you might say number of patients I saw today was 20. Right, and 20, you cannot see 20.5 patients. You can either see 20 or see 21. That's discrete. The number of cars on the road that passed by my house, you cannot have a half car, right? It's either 15 cars or 16 cars. So that's a discrete variable. And that's different from a categorical variable. In categorical variable, we typically will take a continuous variable and break it up. That's one approach, right? We might break it up into two, or we might break it up into multiple, depending on the message that we're trying to pass or how we're trying to engage with the data. Sometimes we also have variables that are nominal, that they're categorical variables, but they're not categorical variables that come from numbers. They're categorical variables that come from a particular characteristic about the variable, about maybe, so gender, for instance, might be male, female, others. Colors might be red, black, green, yellow. We cannot have color 1, color 2, color 3. That's not how we typically think about it, right? So that's a nominal variable. And there's nominal variables all over our lives and in our experiences, and there's also what is called ordinal variables. Ordinal variables are variables that tell us something about severity, like something is getting worse, or something is getting better, or something is getting more. And so we might have BMI, for instance, where there's underweight, there's normal weight, there's overweight, there's obese. Okay. Or we might have disease stage where in HIV it might be stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, or it might be in cancer where we use grades. So all of this is basically the fundamental understanding that is going to guide everything else that you're going to do in statistics. Okay. Any questions at this point? If you don't have questions, I'm going to ask my own questions. Any questions? All right, so no question. So this is my first question. And there's a poll feature on Google Meet, but I've not set it up yet. So what we're going to do is that I want you to read this question and raise your hand and tell us what you think the answer is. You've measured systolic blood pressure for 5,000 patients. You then group systolic blood pressure into 4 categories. Less than 90, between 90 and 120, between 120 and 130, above 130. What type of variable is it? Steven?
It's categorical.
It's categorical. Okay. Mary, do you agree with him? What kind of categorical variable is it?
Yes, I agree that it's categorical, but ordinal category.
Ordinal categorical. Okay. All right. Everybody agrees it's ordinal. Why is it not nominal categorical? Anyone else want to speak? Edward?
The reason as to why it's not nominal is because we can quantitatively order it. We can order it depending on the ranges, which is not the case with nominal.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. So ordinal categorical. And so ratios are also important. They help us to sort of compare two values. And typically we'll have a numerator and we'll have another number under it as a denominator. And the numerator and denominator, they need not be related, but ratios help us to get a sense of how large. Someone says they can't hear the others. I'm not sure why that is, because I can hear very clearly everything else that everybody else is saying. I don't know, maybe it might be the mic. All right, so ratios also, they help us to describe the population, and they help us to understand how one value is related to the other. And we might say that the number of diabetics in a general outpatient clinic versus the non-diabetics, right? So you might say, oh, there were, among all the patients I saw today, there were 5 patients who had diabetes and there were 20 patients who did not. So that is a 5 to 20 ratio, right? So ratios are important, and it's basically, they're also fractions in some ways. The ratios are important, and that's good to understand. And on some level, a proportion is a type of ratio, because again, there's a numerator, there's a denominator, and typically the most common proportion that comes up in epidemiology, in statistics, is the prevalence, right? Especially in the context of diseases. What's the proportion of cases to the overall population? If a few years ago there was COVID everywhere and everybody was concerned about getting COVID, and so one statistic that you will be interested in will be in a population, how many people have had COVID yet, right? And that's a prevalence where it's existing. If you already have that prevalence, if you already have that condition, then you go in the numerator. And everybody in the population goes in the denominator. And it's important to always note what's in the numerator versus what's in the denominator, because sometimes you have values, you have ratios that look similar to each other, but they're not the same. Okay, so that's a prevalence. The difference between a prevalence and an incidence is that incidence will only look at those who are new. So if you have patients who have had the disease before, so I'll give you an example. Say in 2023, you want to see what's the incidence of HIV in a town, and there are 100 people in that town. Okay, 100 people in that town at the beginning of the year. If 5 people have had HIV before, those 5 people are no longer assuming that you cannot have HIV twice, you can only have it once. Then those 5 people are no longer at risk. And for incidence, for cumulative incidence, the denominator is individuals at risk at time t0, which is the beginning. So that means that it will be 100 minus 5 will be the denominator, which is 95. Now, in 2023, there are now 6 new people who have had HIV in this community. Those new cases will go in the numerator. That's 6 over 95. So that's really important to understand as a distinction. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just stop here and ask if people have questions, some of the things that you might have already read or you might have gone through that's not clear. Usman, you have a question?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I just want to be clear. You raised that the incidence, the denominator has to be 100 minus 5. I was not sure how you get into that. Do you want to take that over again? Thank you.
Okay. All right. So the incidence, the denominator is individuals at risk. Okay. Compared to prevalence, the denominator is individuals in the population. So that means that for prevalence, it is everybody in the population. But some of these people can no longer have HIV because they have had HIV before last year. Okay. So they are not new cases and they are not at risk anymore. Okay. So for cumulative incidence, we're interested in among those who are at risk, how many had the disease this year? If they already have the disease, they don't belong in the denominator. So I said that if there are 100 people in the community and 5 people already have HIV, then they are no longer at risk. So that means that that denominator is 95. Okay. And the numerator is those who then have it during this year, 2023. Okay. So that is 5 out of 95. If 5 people have the disease this year, or maybe 6 because we used 6 before, so that's a 6 over 95. Somebody said to use obesity to explain the incidence. Okay, all right. So, and obesity is also it's also very similar case. You have a community where there are, say in the US, for instance, you have, let's use smaller numbers so it doesn't get complicated too much. You have a community where there are 300 people overall. Everybody in the population is 300. Out of that 300, 100 people are already obese. As at 2022, 100 people were obese already. Okay, that means you have 200 people who are not obese in January of 2023. On the 1st of January, they were not obese at all. Those are the people who are at risk of obesity. Okay. Among those who are at risk of obesity, during 2023, maybe every month you're going back to check their weights and their height. And during 2023, you learned that there are now 50 people who are obese. They were not obese last year, but they're obese this year. Okay? That means they're an incident case. They're a new case of obesity. So because they're a new case of obesity, they will go in the numerator, the top one. Okay? But the bottom here, so that's 50 in the top, new cases of obesity. The bottom is the 200 who did not have obesity on the 1st of January. Okay? So that means that the cumulative incidence during this period of 2023 is 50 over 200. Okay? I hope that's clear now. All right, Mustafa. Please ask your question.
Yeah, I think it's clear now. I wanted to ask, I think it's clear now. I wanted to ask if those that you are including in the numerator of the cumulative incidence will still be counted as those that are at risk of the disease. But I think you already clarified that you would have already counted those that are at risk before you start counting those that have disease eventually.
Excellent. You will count those at risk first, 200 at the beginning in January 1st, and then the cases as you go along. Excellent. Thank you. All right. So rate. And maybe I should go through this as well because it's also fairly fundamental to everything else that you're going to come across. Okay. The difference between everything that we've talked about. So in prevalence, we said that you look at the existing cases and individuals. So let's use the obesity case, for instance. Since you guys have gotten incidents, but we at the beginning, we said that there are 300 people in the population. So for prevalence, that is 300, we'll go here. 100 already had the disease, and then 50 had the disease in 100 already had obesity by 2022, and 50 now have obesity in 2023. So the prevalence here will be existing cases of 100 plus 150, 150 over 300. Okay, that's clear. Now, for the rate, the difference in the rate is that the rate we will now also look at the time more carefully. In cumulative incidence, what we did was that we looked at time by bounding the time and saying that you can only look at the time during this period. But the difference is that for rate, the time is the denominator. Time is the denominator. In the numerator, we will have new cases just like we had here in cumulative incidence. So in cumulative incidence, we have new cases. On the bottom, we have individuals at risk. But for the incidence rate, new cases are on the top, the total time spent in the study on the bottom. So that's a weird ratio. It's not like a typical kind of ratio that we're thinking about. It's not the same unit. The numerator is cases, the denominator is time. And so you will then have something that is basically one death per year, something like that. One death per year, or 500 deaths per year. And if it's maternal mortality, for instance, you might say, 29 women die every year, because the bottom is the time. Okay. And the way that we typically do this in epidemiology is to say person years, or person time, or person hour, right? You will basically have divided the way that you, so one death in this case per 2.5 person years becomes 0.4 deaths per person year. And the way that we'll come up with the person time is that we'll sum the time together. So Kelechi, I'll take your question one moment. there are a number of things that can happen to different people. And that's the example, what this example shows. In the beginning of January 2023, we have 300 people. Some people in that time will experience the outcome. They'll become obese. Some people will drop out of the study. Drop out for whatever reason. It might be that they move away from the community, or they travel abroad, or they have to go to school, and you don't know what's happening to them. That is this person, B, who dropped out. Okay? Person A experienced the outcome. And that outcome can be death, it can be anything, it can be obesity. And person C did not experience the outcome at all. So you will count the amount of time that everybody spends in your population and add that time together. So you will count the amount of time for person A, and the amount of time for person B, and the amount of time for person C. So maybe person A was in the study throughout the year, and person B left at 6 months, and person C was in the study throughout the year. That's how we came up with this 2.5 years, because it's 1 plus 2 plus 0.5, which is 2.5. Okay? All right, Kelechi, your question.
Hi, good evening. So I wanted to ask, if we're not
Hi.
using death as the outcome, yeah, is it also possible to say we had 15 new cases of obesity in a time of 3 months, maybe a period of 3 months?
Yes.
Okay, that also happens.
Typically, we will then divide it in such a way that we'll say per month or per year. So you can either say if 15 new cases per 3 months, you can either say that is times 4, which is 60 new cases per year, or you can divide it and say that is 25 new cases per month. So that's completely up to you. But that's a rate. A rate is really a measure of how quickly something is happening. And rates are really important. They're intuitive to us because if a disease is spreading and it's spreading very fast, right? A rate is what will help you to get a grasp of how quickly this is happening and then how quickly you need to run. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So what's next? Right, so I'm going to stop here for the day and ask that you look through the rest of the material. But these explanations that we've done of the prevalence, the rate, the cumulative incidence, they're fundamental to everything else. And if you have any questions as you review them, please reach out and we will take them. You will have the material on Google Classroom. They're explained carefully. Some of the classes, we took them multiple times. We chose the one that we thought was the best, that's easiest to explain. And please reach out to us. But you have to, we expect you to please review the material on your own time, okay? And come to the question with, and come to the class with questions. And yeah. Again, go back and review the email that we sent. It has a lot of what you need to navigate this class. And if you have any issues, reach out. Lawal Sadiq, please ask your question. I'll take any questions that you might have. And if you don't have any questions, then we can wrap up. Benjamin, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. So I was wondering if you have any resources on the prevalence, incidence, and the IR that you can share so we audit it, and get some theoretical perspective so that in the course of the class it will be easy to follow, right? Thank you.
So maybe like a textbook.
Yeah, so
right?
like maybe a resources that can point us to for further readings. Sort of. I understand that there is a video on epidemiology. If that would be helpful, I think it's also a good thing that if you can recommend that. Right?
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll we'll email. Okay, so more material to get that. So really, what we're hoping to do with what you will need to do in the class for this class is to have a broad understanding of that material. But we'll send you videos for the epidemiology classes that go into it in more detail, and maybe textbooks that might be where there might be online PDFs or something that you can access. I'll look as well to see if there's something we can share. Edward, please ask your question.
Yes, thank you so much. It's kind of more of a clarity I'm requesting for. We had somewhere where we had 2.5 people, let's say, per year. So in case someone falls out, not halfway, do I still count them as 2.5, or necessarily as long as they were part of the study at first? At any point they drop out, they count as 2.5. Rather, they count as a 0.5 something. Yes, exactly this slide.
Yeah, so it depends on where they dropped out. If a person dropped out in the first month, we'll count that month for that person. So it's not as if because they dropped out, we'll count them as half. No, we'll count the amount of time that they spent in the study, right? So if you have a study that's a multi-year study, and the person spent 5 years, in that 6th year, they now spent 1 month. That is 5 years, 1 month. We'll count all that for them, and we'll add that to the amount of time that the next person is also spending. Maybe that person spent 12 years in the study, right? So we will count it to the final month when they dropped out. It doesn't have to be 0.5. We just use 0.5 here for illustration. Okay, somebody asked about reminder email. Thank you very much for bringing that up. So today, we didn't send a reminder email. Typically, we will send reminder emails and then we'll drop a message. We didn't do that, unfortunately. Apologies. We'll try to do that going forward. Okay. Yeah, Hafiz Abiodun, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Or is it just possible just create a kind of a WhatsApp group for these members alone for easy communication?
Yeah, so we're trying to avoid WhatsApp.
Okay.
Partly because personally I find WhatsApp very intrusive, and it's a huge class. We have 500 and something people in the class, right? So it will become a ruckus. I'm not sure that we want to add managing a WhatsApp group to our but we'll have Google Classroom, and if you go to the Google Classroom, it can function almost completely like a WhatsApp. You can post there, you can ask questions there. Yeah, so
all right.
Thank you. Yeah. Forward to please. Forward, you have your hand raised. Please ask your question. Forward to Balarabe, you have your hand raised. All right, so anybody have questions?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to join this educative session. We really appreciate this kind gesture. So my question is, I don't want to get this clear. Is it that because I joined the class late because the time clashes with our praying time, so I joined, then left and rejoined again. So I wanted to get it clear. Are we supposed to study the material so that this live session is going to be an opportunity for us to ask questions where we have gray areas, or the live sessions can cover for the materials? I don't know whether you get my question clear.
I get the question. Yes, the live sessions will not cover the material. Will not cover for the material. So the expectation is not that we will come to teach.
Okay.
The expectation is that we will come to review together. Okay. If we want to do a full teaching, we will need more time. So now we're devoting 2 hours a week for the session, 1 hour for R, 1 hour for SPSS. If we want to teach the material, we would need at least 2 hours to teach the material, right? And then we'll need time for R, we'll need time for SPSS. We don't want to do that. Yeah, because, yeah, so we want to make sure that we give you enough time, but you want you to do extra work on your own, and then come to these sessions to ask questions.
Okay, thank you very much. The email is it that I didn't get it clear? The email didn't specify it, so I in person didn't go through the materials actually, but haven't learned it now. By God's grace, next session is going to be, we'll have a lot of questions to ask.
Excellent, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Steven, yeah, okay.
Yes, good evening, everyone. What I wanted to maybe consult was, are we going to be given assignments? Then these assignments we go to the YouTube, and then we read the materials from there. Then we do the assignments according to where we have understood from the YouTube, something like that.
So we will give assignments, but the assignments are supposed to be done after you have read the material, after you have understood. So the assignments are not going to guide you to do the reading or to watch the videos. This is what I mean. The assignments will come at the end. Okay? Yeah.
Sorry, please, what was your name, sir? I didn't get that earlier. I joined quite late.
Oh, okay, sorry. My name is Ibrahim Abue. Yep.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't even introduce myself either. So who else has Mustafa? You have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Would the meeting recording be shared?
Yes, we will share the recording. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I don't know, my network got lost. I missed the part of calculating the total time spent in study. I don't know if you can help, or maybe it's in the recording. Perhaps I can refer to it. I just
I
wanted
didn't
to be
get that.
sure.
Sorry.
Like in the rate, like how do we calculate the time? Like for the denominator, I get the number of new cases since it's the same with cumulative incidence, but then the denominator that is different now, how can we calculate it?
Okay,
like
excellent. It's a sum of the amount of time spent. So if if this person A spent 1 year, then that is 1. If person B spent half year, then that is half. And so you add 1 plus half, that's 1.5. And if person C spent 1 year, then that's how we come up with the 2.5 years. So if person A spent 1.1 years or 1.1, years is fine, and person B spent 2.5 years, we'll add 1.1 plus 2.5. Right? So what I'm saying in essence is that it's just a sum of the amount of time they spent in the study. That's all. And when we sum that up together, that's the total time spent in the study by participants.
All right. The participants, will they be the total population, like that of the denominator of the prevalence, or it's going to be the individuals that risk? Like, how do we know the number of participants to take?
Yeah, it is everybody at risk.
In the population.
It is everybody in the population. Sorry. Everybody in the population is going to go into the denominator, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I get that. Okay. Yeah. So it's different from the cumulative incidence where we are only considering people at risk.
Yes. In that regard.
Thank you. I think it's clear now.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, so somebody asked whether this is the material for the week 1, and maybe that's a sign that this person probably came late. So if you go through Google Classroom, the material for week 1 is already posted, and that is here, right? Next week is when the class will really formally start, and we will have an instructor come and teach, mostly review the material for measures of central tendency, but also this material for week 2, because this is also going to go live tomorrow. Okay. But this week we wanted to, because a lot of people have not yet got the hang of it. That's why we're doing a very short session. There's the lecture part and also explaining to people how the class is going to work. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Any final questions before we wrap up? Oh, what? You have a question?
Yes, sir. This one is not a question. It's I just want to get something clear. This the issue of average that you were explaining during the initial few hours of the session.
Yeah.
So during my research, someone I just read it somewhere that average is generally avoided in scientific publications because it can take several minutes. It can take virtually all the minutes of the centers of tendency. It can be mean, it can be median, and it can be mode. So that's why they say it's better when you are writing scientifically, just specifically pinpoint the one that you are talking about. So I don't know whether I got that information clear.
Yes, you did get the information clear. Yeah. So people often say mean, median. There's also geometric mean, and all of those in general parlance will describe them as average. So you're right.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes. Somebody just asked if the incidence rate is total time spent in the study by participants at risk. It should be those who are at risk, not everybody. Those who are at risk at the beginning of the study, at the beginning of the year, these are the people who are in the denominator of incidence rate as well. Okay. We can talk about this some more some other time. Any final questions?
Please, I have a question.
Okay. Precious, go ahead. Yeah.
As a okay, in statistical analysis, is it just our programming language you need? Do you need to learn about Python and programming language?
So you don't have to learn Python, but you can if you want. The truth is that you only need one statistical software and it will do everything you want. I, for instance, don't know how to use Python. I learned how to use R in 2020. I didn't use R before that. Before that, I used SAS. And since I started using R, I've never gone back to SAS. So I guess so it's up to you. It's what do you want to be using? Before that, I was using SPSS. I don't use SPSS now for my analysis. So each one will be enough. You don't have to learn all of them. Okay, so what you do learn, right, make sure that you perfect it enough to be able to make the best of it. Okay. Babatunde, please ask.
Okay.
Babatunde, we're going to pick up. Please ask your question. We can't hear you if you're speaking. Sharon, here's your question.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, so please, I want to ask, what's the place of Excel in analysis? Is it still relevant to learn Excel, like advanced Excel? I mean, not
Yeah.
it's not just basic Excel.
It's up to you, to be honest. It's relevant. A lot of people who use them are typically in the financial sector. They use Excel a lot. In corporate world, people use Excel for a bunch of things. Typical statisticians don't use Excel often, right? Because the issue is that in statistics for science, you want to be able to come back to the work that you did and look at how you did it. And that's one advantage that R has. Your code is written there. You can rerun the code and it'll give you the exact same answer many times over again. So that reproducibility is a key feature of R, right? And Python, and some of this other software. SPSS does not have that reproducibility. Excel has it, but to some extent. Like you would need to go and look at the formulas that went into the Excel. So I feel like it's valuable. If you think that you would need it, then you should learn it. If you think that if you're not sure, then maybe you don't really need it if you haven't come across the need to use it. Tabatsune, you have a question?
Yes, a bit of a lazy one. Basically, I know for this live session, we did get invites. I just wanted to be sure for subsequent live sessions, are we going to get such invites? Or it's just keep it in the back of your head, I have it by this time, and then click each link all the time?
No, we will send invites. And in fact, we will send reminders every morning. We didn't do that today, but we should send reminders every morning to say, oh, today there's going to be a session at such a time, and share the link if we can. Okay. Hafiz. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So, in simplicity, what are the software would you advise us to work on or to study or to know?
It's either R or SPSS. That's what I think. There's also Stata, there's SAS, there's Python, there's maybe 10 more other softwares. All you need is choose the one that you want to use, and make the best of it. I find R to be very useful, fairly easy to get into, and there's a lot of material for it online. There's a community that's going to help you get up to speed with it. So it's also free, right? So I find the fact that it's free to be very useful. You don't have to pay for SPSS, for instance. You might need to pay for the license every year, so. Bello, you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much for organizing this. If someone is familiar with Stata, is there any advantage of learning R or SPSS, or Stata will suffice? Thank you.
Stata will suffice. We won't support Stata in this class though, but Stata will suffice. You will learn all the same concepts, and if you go online, you will find the code that will help if you want to use code for Stata. If you don't want to use code for Stata, you'll be able to use point and click. That's the advantage that Stata has. It has both code and point and click. But we will not be able to support it. That's partly because Stata is not as really accessible in many African countries, and that's how we've sort of focused the analysis, the cost plan.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Any final questions? Okay, thank you very much for coming on today. And next week we will have the real first session of the class. And please review the material for this week and next week by then, and come prepared with questions. And so you will have R and SPSS, and you can use any one that you want, and you can join either one that you want and make the best of it. Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you very much, and talk to you guys soon. Cheers.